Hello and welcome to the premiere episode of Bytes, Borders, and Breaches, the flagship podcast from the Infallible Security channel. I'm your host, Bharat Mattaparti. By day, I serve as a senior customer success manager. My life is spent navigating the dense alphabet soup of modern data security: DRM, CASB, SSE, and DSPM. My job is to help global organizations lock down their digital assets against a world that is constantly trying to pry them open. By night, I'm usually debating whether The Matrix is the greatest movie ever made. It is, by the way. And not just because of the kung fu or the bullet time, it's because it showed us a fundamental truth that the world we live in is built on code. And anything built on code can be hacked, manipulated, and rewritten if you know where to look. That feels a lot like the reality of cybersecurity in 2025. I'm from Vishakhapatnam, India, and I've spent the last 13 years in the United States. I have moved from the trenches of writing code, staring at terminal screens until my eyes bled, to the boardrooms of managing customer success. That journey taught me that the world is basically one giant, messy code base. It's full of legacy dependencies, undocumented features, and critical vulnerabilities. We like to think borders and bytes are separate things. We think geography is physical and the internet is virtual. That distinction is dead. A change in a political policy in Gaza can cause a stack overflow in a bank in New York. A single line of code written in Beijing can turn off the lights in Texas. This is the show where we take the red pill. We stop looking at the headlines and start looking at the code running beneath the chaos. It is Sunday, November 23rd, 2025, and looking back at the chaos of this past week, the script I planned to write got flipped on its head because the digital world decided to have a meltdown just a few days ago. We have a massive, jam packed episode for you today. First, we will start with securing the borders. We look at the United Nations Gaza resolution from earlier this week. We're going to discuss the concept of the splinternet and what happens when international law crashes into digital sovereignty. We are pairing that with a story that feels straight out of a spy novel. Anthropic's Operation Wolfs Bane. Chinese state hackers are now using AI agents to write their own cyber attacks. Skynet isn't coming, it's already here and it's hacking strictly for the state. Second, we will look at decoding the bytes. We were going to talk about watermarking deepfakes. We still will, because the ethics of AI identity are critical. But we do have to talk about the elephant in the server room: the massive Cloudflare outage that took down half the internet earlier this week. We will discuss the fragility of centralization and why zero trust shouldn't mean blind faith. And finally, we'll move on to dissecting the breach. While the AI agents and cloud giants made headlines all week, the Akira ransomware group is quietly making $250 million by exploiting the oldest trick in the book. We are going to walk through the anatomy of their attack so you can see exactly how they get in. Buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride. First up, securing the borders. Let's start with the physical borders because the kinetic world always drives the digital world. Earlier this week, on November 17th, the United Nations Security Council approved a United States drafted resolution for Gaza. It establishes an international stabilization force to fill the power vacuum left by the conflict. Now, putting on my Game of Thrones hat, or should I call a crown, for a second, whenever you hear the words power vacuum, you know chaos is coming. In Westeros, Littlefinger taught us that chaos is a ladder. It's an opportunity for the ruthless to climb. But in cybersecurity, chaos isn't a ladder. Chaos is an open port. Chaos is a misconfigured firewall. This resolution creates a massive data sovereignty headache that most people are not talking about. I work with global companies every day on this exact issue. Let's play out a scenario. Imagine you're a bank, or a telecom provider, or a hospital operating in that region. You have servers full of sensitive customer data, medical records, financial transactions, private communications. Suddenly, a new international stabilization force walks in. They have a mandate to secure the region. But what does that mean for your data? Data doesn't have a passport, but it does have a jurisdiction. If the United Nations force demands access to your server logs to hunt for insurgents, do you give it to them? If you do, are you violating the privacy laws of the original host nation? If you don't, are you aiding the enemy? And here is the deeper technical problem: data replication. Most modern cloud architectures replicate data across borders for redundancy. Your data might live in Gaza, but it is backed up in Tel Aviv and archived in London. If the legal status of the primary site changes, what happens to the backups? This is why we are seeing a rise in what experts call the splinternet. The internet is fracturing into regional, bordered intranets where data cannot leave the country it was created in. This is where tools like DSPM, data security posture management, aren't just nice to have. They are legal survival kits. Think of DSPM like a GPS for your secrets. You need to know exactly where your sensitive data is down to the specific file on the specific server. You need to know how to access it. And crucially, you need to know which set of laws applies to it. Because when the geopolitical map changes overnight, ignorance is not a defense, it's a liability. But while the United Nations is watching the physical border, a much quieter, deadlier war is happening on the digital border. And this brings us to the major report from Anthropic that dropped recently. Anthropic, the makers of the Claude AI model, released a bombshell report on something called Operation Wolfs Bane. Here's the lowdown. A Chinese state sponsored group tracked as GTG 1002 didn't just use AI to write a generic phishing email. We've seen that before. That's old news. No, they effectively gave the AI keys to the car. According to the report, these hackers used Anthropic's Claude Code tool to create autonomous AI agents. These agents performed 80 to 90% of the attack lifecycle without human intervention. Let's pause and really let that sink in. 80 to 90%. In a traditional cyber attack, there is a concept called the OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, act. The hacker has to look at the screen, figure out what they're seeing, decide what command to type, and then type it. That takes time. It takes cognitive load. With Wolfs Bane, the human hackers hit start, they grabbed a coffee, and the AI closed that loop instantly. It did the reconnaissance, it scanned the ports, it found the vulnerabilities, it wrote the exploit code to break in. For my Harry Potter fans out there, this name, Wolfs Bane, is tragically perfect. In J.K. Rowling's world, the Wolfs Bane potion is what Remus Lupin takes. It keeps the werewolf sane. It allows the monster to hide in plain sight, to walk within the castle walls without attacking the students. It masks the nature of the beast. Anthropic is calling this Wolf's Bane because they claim they caught it and stopped it. They contained the monster. But let's be real. The monster is out of the cage. This represents a pivot point in history. For 20 years, we have worried about script kiddies, teenagers in hoodies copying code they didn't understand. Now we have entered the era of agentic threats. From a technical perspective, this is terrifying because of the speed and the scale. A human hacker might take days to scan a network. They get tired, they make typos, they overlook a small detail because they are bored. An AI agent does not get tired. It does not get bored. It scans every single IP address, every single port, every single line of code in seconds. It creates an asymmetric warfare scenario. The attacker is moving at machine speeds, calculating vectors, writing codes in milliseconds. The defender, we, are still moving at human speed. We are still waiting for a pager alert to wake us up at 2 a.m. If you are a CISO listening to this, this changes your entire threat model. You cannot rely on signatures anymore. You can't just look for a known bad file hash. You are looking for an intelligence that can adapt on the fly. It's the difference between fighting a stormtrooper who misses every shot and fighting a Terminator. One follows orders, the other has mission objective and will calculate the most efficient path to execute it, regardless of the obstacles you put in its way. The takeaway here is clear. The wolf is at the door and it knows how to pick the lock better than any human ever could. Next up, decoding the bytes. We need to talk about the infrastructure that holds our reality together. If you try to log into ChatGPT or check on X or maybe catch a train on NJ Transit on Tuesday morning, you probably saw a 404 error or maybe just a spinning wheel of death. That's because Cloudflare had a massive global outage. Now, if you aren't in the industry, you might ask, what is Cloudflare? Cloudflare is the duct tape of the internet. It sits in front of millions of websites, about 20% of the entire web, and it acts as a shield and a distinct accelerator. It stops distributed denial of service attacks and it caches content so it loads faster. But here is the problem with the duct tape. When it rips, everything falls apart. Reports confirm this outage affected their Access Zero Trust platform. And this is deeply ironic and honestly a little painful for me as a security professional. We spend all day preaching a concept called zero trust. The old way of security was castle and moat. You had a firewall, the moat. Inside the firewall, everyone was trusted. Outside, everyone was untrusted. But that failed because once a hacker got across the moat, they could roam the castle freely. So we moved to zero trust. Never trust, always verify. The idea is that you don't use a VPN. You use a service like Cloudflare Access every time you try to open a file or load a web page. The system checks your ID. It verifies you are who you say you are. It is a great system in theory. But here is the trust paradox. To implement zero trust, you have to place absolute blind trust in the vendor providing it. When Cloudflare goes down, You don't just lose your public website, you lose your internal tools. Imagine this: you are a developer, you need to push code to fix a bug. You can't because the authentication server is down. You are an HR manager. You need to access payroll. You can't. The digital doors to your own office are locked, and Cloudflare has the only key. It reminds me of the Death Star in Star Wars, an incredible technological terror capable of ruling the entire galaxy, the ultimate power in the universe. But it had one thermal exhaust port, one central point of failure. And if you hit that, the whole thing blows up. We have centralized so much of the internet's infrastructure into three or four companies: Cloudflare, AWS, Microsoft, Google, that a single configuration error, a single bad line of code pushed by an engineer on Tuesday morning acts like a Luke Skywalker proton torpedo. This outage forces a hard conversation for my customers this week. It forces us to ask, what is your break glass plan? We are so obsessed with efficiency that we have sacrificed resilience. If the cloud evaporates, do you have a physical backup key? Can you route traffic around the failure? Or are you just stuck outside in the rain waiting for the servers to reboot? Now, shifting gears slightly, let's look at why we rely on these platforms. It is largely to filter out bad traffic and fake content, which brings us to our second byte topic: generative watermarking. While the internet was struggling to stay online this week, the World Economic Forum was praising this tech as a top 10 breakthrough. The idea is simple: embed an invisible signal, a watermark, into AI generated content so we can identify it. When an AI generates an image or a voice clip, it weaves a secret pattern into the pixels or the sound waves. Humans can't see it, but a computer can detect it and say, this was made by a machine. Ideally, this stops the deepfakes. It stops the disinformation. But let's be real. I look at this like the Voight Camp test from Blade Runner. For those who haven't seen the movie, the Voight Camp test is a machine designed to look into the eye of a subject and measure their emotional response and tell the difference between a human and a replicant, a bioengineered android. In the movie, the test is the only thing keeping society from collapsing into paranoia. In a corporate setting, this is becoming vital. Imagine a world where Operation Wolfs Bane, remember our AI hackers from earlier, isn't just sending code. Imagine they send a deep fake video of your CEO on a Zoom call. The CEO looks real, he sounds real, he tells the CFO, we need to authorize this urgent wire transfer for the acquisition. The CFO does it, and the money is gone. We need a white camp machine to validate reality. We need that watermark to light up and say, warning, synthetic media detected. But I'm skeptical. And here is why. Watermarking is a good guy tool. It relies on the model creators, OpenAI, Google, Adobe, playing by the rules. It relies on them inserting the watermark voluntarily. Do we think the state-sponsored hackers in China, the ones running Wolfs Bane, are going to politely watermark their deepfakes? Oh, sorry. Let me add "this is fake" sticker to my espionage campaign so you can catch me? No, of course not. It's an arms race. It's exactly like counterfeit currency. The government adds watermarks, strips, and holograms to the dollar bill. The counterfeiters figure out how to fake the holograms. You can watermark the gun, but you can't stop the bullet. Finally, dissecting the breach. We have talked about cutting edge AI spies. We have talked about the global infrastructure collapses. But the biggest payday in cybercrime right now is not coming from Skynet. It is not coming from complex agentic AI threats. It is coming from a group called Akira. And they are robbing companies blind, using the digital equivalent of a rusty crowbar. CISA, the US Cyber Defense Agency, updated their advisory on Akira mid-November. And the numbers are staggering. This group has raked in $250 million. How? Are they using quantum computing to crack encryption? No. Are they using zero-day exploits that no one has ever seen before? No. They are targeting VPNs without multi-factor authentication. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. In every Mission Impossible movie, Tom Cruise has to hang from the ceiling by a wire. He has to dodge lasers. He has to wear a prosthetic mask. He has to hack a retinal scanner just to get into the server room. It is complicated. It's sexy. It's hard. In the real world, Akira is just walking up to the front door, trying the handle, and realizing, wow, it's unlocked. Specifically, they are targeting Sonic Wall and Cisco VPNs where the admins haven't enabled MFA of an Akira attack. So you understand what happens. Step 1. Access. They buy stolen credentials on the dark web. Someone in your company reused their password. Akira buys that password for $5. They try it on your VPN. There is no MFA code sent to your phone. They are in. Step 2, exfiltration. They don't encrypt yet. They are patient. They look around. They find your most sensitive data, your customer lists, your financial records, your emails. They copy it all and upload it to their own servers. Step 3, encryption. Now they drop the hammer. They deploy the ransomware. Every server, every laptop, every backup that is connected to the network gets locked. This is called double extortion. Even if you have backups, they have you. You might say, I won't pay the ransom. I'll just restore from the backup. Akira says, go ahead, restore your backup. But if you don't pay us, we will post all 5 terabytes of your customer data on the public internet. It is checkmate. For my customers, this is the come to Jesus moment. I don't care if you have the fanciest AI defense systems. I don't care if you have an army of analysts. If you have a legacy VPN running in a closet somewhere without multi-factor authentication, you are the low-hanging fruit. You are a gazelle limping at the back of the herd. It's like Jurassic Park. You can have all the motion sensors, you can have the electric fences, you can have the best geneticists in the world. But if Dennis Nerdy shuts off the power system, or if you leave the VPN open, the raptors will get out. And in this case, the raptors are taking $250 million with them. So let's wrap this up. What is the thread this week? We have United Nations resolutions changing data laws. We have Chinese AI agents writing their own code. We have Cloudflare outages breaking the trust model. And we have ransomware gangs making a fortune on basic mistakes. The thread is fragility. We are building systems of immense power. AI agents that can code. Global networks that connect billions. But these systems are fragile. A single configuration error takes down the web. A single MFA token costs you millions. A single political decision changes where your data is allowed to live. Our job as security professionals, and just as people living in this matrix, is to build resilience, to verify the watermark but not trust it blindly, to lock the VPN and check it twice, to have a backup plan when the cloud goes dark. Thank you for joining me on this premiere episode of Bytes, Borders and Breaches. I'm your host, Bharat Mattaparti. Keep your shields up, check your backups, and remember, there is no spoon. May the force be with you.